everyone's doing alright. For this video, I'm going to be going into another candle, and this is a different entry technique. So this is Lacuna Candles, and essentially what you want to use this for is scalings, and what a scale in is. Let me just write this down. So scaling is when you have your initial position, let's say somewhere up here. You took your initial position, so let's say it lined up with a inefficiency or something, and you took your position up here, right? So you decided to short up here. A scaling is when you're adding to your positions on price's direction to the downside. You don't want to use a Lacuna candle as your initial point of entry. You don't want to be you don't want to you don't want this technique, this candle, to be your first position, because I'm going to go into it. So it's essentially a Lacuna candle is a random candle that's printed in the middle of a high momentum impulse, and this occurs because people enter long or shorts, and they're basically in a situation like this when people are shorting, and then someone decides to long, they're basically like in drawdown because price has now returned against them, right? And the same as like when I talked about sponsored candles, they will wait for price to come back within this candle's region to take themselves out the trade. They want to either take themselves out at break even, or they just want to reduce their drawdown and how much they're gonna lose. So by allowing price to move in the opposite direction, so by allowing price to move downwards, they're gonna wait for price to come back within this region, and they're gonna take out their orders. So what you see happen is this. Give me a second, sorry. This is what you see happen. Price will start trending back upwards, yeah. And the same as sponsored candles, the same as the inefficiency, because there could be people that longed here, there could be people that were longing at the 50, there could be people that longed at the very top. So what happens is price will either come to the 50 or to the top, and what you'll see is a nice what you'll see is a nice rejection to the downside. Why this is because when they're taking out their buy orders, so look here, they've bought here, right? Let's say they bought here at the top. Because they bought, they were in drawdown. They were in drawdown, and they don't want to lose. So when price comes back up, when it gets to this point, they're in zero drawdown. So they're not in profit, neither are they in drawdown. So what they do is they close the order because they understand that the market's actually going to go against them. And what you need to understand is exiting orders relieves pressure from the market. And essentially what that means is that closing a buy order is equivalent to a sell order. So technically, when they close their orders, price should reverse, and 9 times out of 10 it does. And in terms of volume, you want to look at the volume at the Lacuna candle, and the volume has to be lower than the directional volume. So for example, in a buy, you want the buy volume to be higher than the Lacuna. And I'm going to show you an example of what I mean by that. So this is exactly how it works, right? So this is the order. This is the order that the candle's within. So this is the candle that the order's within. and this is how you essentially use it. Let me just go into it. So let's look here, right? High momentum move to the upside. I don't even have to show you the momentum, the data range. You can just see that off the bat of your eye. So price moves to the upside, right? You can see that someone decided to sell and price just moved onwards. You see how that's implanted between the two bullish candles. That's what you want to look for. And look, get the 50% of that candle. And in this case, it was an open that was respected. So you take your position, and I'm just going to give you guys a second to guess where you put your stop loss. Not guess, try to figure out where you would put your stop loss. I'm just going to give you guys a second. Alright, so where you put your stop loss is below the candle. So below the wick of that candle, right here, is where you put your stop loss. Give it some breathing space. Give a few pips of slippage. So maybe if this is like 2 point, maybe do like 3 pips. Just give it some room to breathe and take the position, right? Have your first take profit at the last point of structure up here, and that's how you play it. And if we just play, that's what tends to happen. You'll see price start moving to the upside. There you go. Even if you took partials here, you'd have locked in 4% of a trade. And in terms of longer direction, this could have been your final take profit. Or even if you're holding up to that point, right, you're looking at a 14% trade. Oh, price actually came down to break even. Yep. Or I mean, it's technically come down to fill. So that's how you use the Lacuna candles. That's how you use them to essentially understand that whoever was selling here knew that the market direction was actually to the upside, and they were happy to take off their positions and exit the market with no loss, and then allow the market to continue onwards. And I'm going to go into what I mean by volume. So volume, if we look at the volume of the Lacuna candle, which shows the volume here, the sell volume was lower than the directional volume. Do you see that? So the volume of the candle here the volume of the candle here was lower than the directional volume. So in terms of like if you look at it from a sell perspective, in a sell, you want the sell volume to be higher than the Lacuna. And in terms of a buy, hold on, give me a second. What I mean is that you want the sell volume, so you want the volume upon the Lacuna candle to be lower than the directional volume. So you want the volume of the direction to be higher than the Lacuna candle. So you see how this sell volume was very low and the buy volume was high, and market direction, the directional bias was to the upside. That's kind of a confluence. That's a confirmation that you're looking for, right? And that's basically Lacuna candles. You can go and backtest this. I believe there was I think, let me just try to find it. I think it was on the daily. There was there was this Lacuna here that was respected. Here. No, was it efficiency? Give me a second. here. So we had our momentum to the downside, right? And we had our buy candle embedded within our sell candles, and you saw price come back into this region and mitigate out of that long. This would have, because this is on the daily, this would have been your initial point of interest. And then within here, you would have found your inefficiency, your sponsored candle, your alleviation candle, whatever entry you would have looked for, and then that's how you would have taken your entry. So like, for example, just to show you, just go back, like, let's say here, let's go to the 15-minute. Let's just play. See what price decides to do. Um, I'm not gonna go too deep into the entry actually. You guys know what I mean. Like, you would have found your entry somewhere within this point. I'm not gonna waste too much time going into it. I've already showed you how you use it. But yeah, that's essentially it for Lacuna candles. Um, but yeah, just a key factor to understand is that they wait for price to return to that level before breaking even or taking profit, which is the same as a short position. Them relieving the pressure from the market by taking out their orders will allow the market to have more buyers, for example. So if there's less people selling, there is more room for the market to go to the upside. You just need to understand that logic behind the Lacuna candle. But yeah, I highly recommend again back testing this and go back to the charts and see how you can implement this for yourself. Thank you guys for listening, and on to the next.